Today we'll be talking about what it means to own a property or a land in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. To so many persons, they think buying a property in Abuja is the same as buying it any other place in Nigeria. But the truth is, right here in Abuja, the rules are different, the processes are stricter, and the legal stakes are even higher. We've seen investors buy properties and in a twinkle of an eye, they all lose it. This is because for some persons who buy properties in Abuja, bought it without the right guidance. Today, I'll teach you what it means to own a property in the Federal Capital Territory and also make you understand property titles as they exist in the Federal Capital Territory. I remain Patrick, your author. Welcome to this space where we'll expose you to the right insight in buying properties anywhere in Nigeria. Like our videos, subscribe to the channel, and also tap on your notification button so that when we drop a new content, you will be the first to see. Imagine being handed the keys to a house, only to discover later that the building stands on a borrowed land. This is the reality of buying land in the Federal Capital Territory. Under the 1978 Land Use Act, all lands in a state are controlled by the government. Things take a step further in the Federal Capital Territory, as land is held in trust by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, administered by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory through the Federal Capital Development Authority. This means that when you buy a land in Abuja, you are not buying ownership in its traditional sense. You are only acquiring leasehold interest, typically for 99 years, and subject to the approval of the FCDA. To make it more understandable, who owns land in Abuja and how can an individual buy land in Abuja? You would understand this with the help of the diagram on the screen. Every land in the Federal Capital Territory is held in trust by the President. So technically, the President owns the land. The land is being administered by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory. The President cannot be everywhere every time to sell land to anybody. So it is administered by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory through the Federal Capital Development Authority, and then allocation is given to individuals or institutions that wishes to buy a land in Abuja. So the long and short of this is that ownership of land in Abuja begins with the government and also ends with the government. It ends with the government because you're typically getting a leasehold interest for 99 years. So after a 99 years, ownership is subject to approval by the FCDA. So they can decide to reapprove or reallocate. So everything land ownership begins with the state and ends with the state. Typically after 99 years, the state is either supposed to get the land back or a reapplication for that same said property. It has to be made and it is subject to the approval of the government. So this is slightly different from what is obtainable in other parts of Nigeria. That being said, let us talk about titles as they exist in Abuja. In Abuja, not all lands are created equal, so also not all titles are equal. So to make you understand this very well, I would explain two methods to which properties are obtained in Abuja, and you need to pay attention very well right here, because this information can either make or break any property investor in Abuja. The first you must understand is what we call the statutory right of occupancy. Now, the statutory right of occupancy, also known as the R of O, is a legal and a recognized property title in Abuja and can only be assigned or given by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory through the FCDA, which is the Federal Capital Development Authority. Now, anybody that owns the R of O has the right to develop and build on the said property or on the said plot in accordance to the zoning regulation for which that particular property is meant to be used for. Aside that, properties that have the R of O are documented and verifiable property. So properties that have the R of O can be verified by the Abuja Geographic Information Systems, the AGIS. So the statutory right of occupancy is a legal document in the Federal Capital Territory. Now, it's a legal document, it's a good title, but it is not a perfect title, and we'll get to that. But this is the first method of owning a property in Abuja. The second would be the customary rights of ownership, the customary ways by which people own property, and this is applicable to almost every rural settlements in Nigeria, whereby chiefs and families own land and have the right to sell certain kinds of land around the country. It's also applicable in Abuja, but really in legal sense does not really hold water, because the government can override and get those kind of properties back at any time, most especially when they are government acquisition. So two methods of purchasing property: by buying it from the FCDE, getting the right of occupancy, or the traditional means of buying from village heads or village chiefs, which is really not advisable at this time. That being said, now you need to know what the key documents are needed when you're buying a property in the Federal Capital Territory. The key document. Now, the first one has been explained earlier, which is the right of occupancy, the R of O, the right of occupancy. Now, after the right of occupancy, the next document you need to know about is the certificate of occupancy. Now, the certificate of occupancy now is widely known, and it's the same everywhere. The explanation of the C of O is the same everywhere. So the C of O is simply the document that gives you the claim to a particular property. It gives you rights, it gives you claim, it gives you ownership for that particular property. For Abuja, for 99 years. In fact, for anywhere in Nigeria, it's always for 99 years. So now the difference between the R of O and the C of O is that the R of O is like the first step to getting the C of O. You have to get the R of O to get the C of O. So the R of O is what is given to you before the C of O is available and is ready. So even when you have the R of O, you must perfect the R of O to a C of O. The same idea as you have it in Lagos, where you have what we call government allocation. Government allocates land, but you cannot just sit at the allocation level. You must still perfect it to a C of O or to a governor's consent. So this is the idea of R of O and the C of O. So the C of O is that legal document that gives you claim, that gives you right, that tells people that this particular portion of land has been given to this particular person and has been documented, and a certificate is being issued in that regard to that person. That is the certificate of occupancy. So if you will buy any property in Abuja, if they are giving you the R of O, that is nice, but the R of O simply means that it is not a perfect title yet. You need to perfect the title till it gets to the C of O. Now there is something that is called ministerial approval for lands in Abuja. Now the idea of ministerial approval is exactly the idea of what we call the governor's consent in Lagos and in other parts of Nigeria. You see, and this happens when there is going to be a resale or a transfer of ownership from someone who originally owns the C of O to another person who wants to buy it. You see, in Lagos, when you want to sell a property that has a certificate of occupancy, it is allowed, but the governor has to be aware that this particular land is going to be transferred from the original owner to the new owner. So the governor has to actually give his consent to that transfer. That is the same thing and is applicable in Abuja. Now, it is not called the governor's consent in Abuja, it is called the ministerial approval. So in cases where transfer or resale of a property that has a certificate of occupancy wants to happen, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory must be aware. He must be aware because he wants to be sure that the property is going to be transferred and used for the exact reason why it was given in the first place. So you cannot get a land for residential, and when you are transferring it, the new person is going to use it for commercial and all those things. In such cases, the land is liable for revocation when you use your land for a wrong zoning use. It can be revoked. So when next you're going to be buying a property in Abuja, the land titles you should be looking at for the right of occupancy, the certificate of occupancy, and in rare cases or in rare situation, the ministerial approval. These are the most important documents. These are the most important land titles you must have in Abuja. Now, in other parts of Nigeria, like Lagos and the rest, you see these title issues are very strict, but are a little bit flexible than what you have it in Abuja. In Abuja, you see, land documentation, land ownership is very strict, and if you do things wrongly, you can get your properties and your land revoked. So this information is being sent out to everyone looking to buy a property in Abuja. If you're looking to buy a property in Abuja, you need this information. You must understand what it means to own a property in Abuja. You must know that ownership of property in Abuja starts with the government and ends with the government. So if you're going to be buying any property, you must buy it through the FCD, or you must buy properties that has the requisite titles from the FCDA. You cannot just go and buy properties arbitrarily in Abuja. You might find out that the properties you're buying are revoked properties, or are government properties, or are not documented properties. So you must understand this and do things rightly, and this is why we are here. We are here to give out information that will help you make wise investment choices so that you don't lose your money. This is all we have for you today. Until we see you in our next video, this is the least you can do for us. It would help us reach out to more people so that we can teach and help people buy safe real estate. For consultation, for advice on property matters, if you are looking to buy a property in Abuja, if you're looking to buy safe real estate in Abuja, or even in Lagos and other parts of Nigeria, my number is on the screen, and the link to my WhatsApp is in the description. When you click on it, you get connected to me directly. I'm waiting to hear from you. I'm waiting to help you buy that safe real estate in Abuja, in Lagos, and other parts of Nigeria. Until we see again, stay safe and keep investing in safe real estate.